Hello and welcome back to Alicia's Place. I'm Alicia, if you didn't know. Yesterday we talked about stretching and like the importance of stretching, along with a little bit of the importance of strengthening. But in today's kind of review, we're going to kind of talk a little bit about the strengthening aspect, and not just the strengthening aspect in like, oh, I have to start working out, I have to start exercising, but the strengthening aspect in doing short concentrated reps. So it's best to utilize lighter weights, and I brought mine just to kind of demo. There's different types of weights that you can find at, sporting goods stores, or even, Target or Walmart, whatever's closest and most convenient. And even if you don't really want to spend any money on weights, if you have canned food or things like that, although it can be, depending on the size of it, you don't want to go too crazy, but simply just getting some light weights to start. You can also utilize, I know a lot of people like the bands that you can usually, but see, with the bands you have to have like a place that you can wrap it around. A lot of times they suggest using the little hinge in your door, or something like that, to kind of help create the resistance. You can also use the bands just by themselves, and but it's really only certain kind of movements that you can do. But with lighter weights, it's nice because, training that muscle or that body part. So for example, with my previous injury, certain movements would really I could either barely do it, or I would have to make myself do it, as far as having effort. So the whole point is to reduce the effort in the movement. And when you come in for your first appointment, I like to go through the motions of the body part. So say, someone's been having pain, and not just pain, but numbness and tingling down the arm, or even just they feel weak. They try and do things, but it seems like it's weak. That can kind of be a lot of things in this whole line of the part of the body, from the neck, the base of the neck, down through and under the collarbone, and so working on getting the body work for those areas, so that any trigger points or any things that are contributing to the holding pattern that has developed, start to address that, the soft tissue in that way. And then in combination with that, I usually would say, of course, whatever the physical therapist is recommending you, but if you aren't working with a physical therapist, you do want to begin to incorporate exercise, these types of things, as far as strengthening, into your life. And I don't say you have to do it every single day, because the truth is you're not going to do it every single day. So planning to do it, starting off planning to do it once a week, and if you are very busy, you don't have to set a certain day, unless that's the type of person you are, where you like to kind of no, this is the day that I do this. that's a really helpful way. And you would essentially go through the range of motion for the body part. Now, when I went to school, my education is really heavy in kind of like the anatomy of the body, and along with the anatomy, what the motions of that body part. So it was really important for me to learn how my shoulder worked, because no one really like goes over how certain body parts that we use every day or that we use regularly, how they actually function. And it's really helpful when you're working with a more clinical style massage therapist, because you basically get that 2-in-1, because you get the body work, but then you're also, like myself, I like to check in with the person and like start to measure, how far was the person able to reach behind their back and reach, because basically when you put your arm behind your back, like you should be able to like bring it up, and I would say for most, like reach kind of like the middle of the back. And if it's not able to do that, then that means that there's a dysfunction and that there's trigger points holding certain muscles in place and not letting them finish that movement. There's a lot of different ways that you can test, for example, like internal and external rotation of the shoulder. I don't know, the one behind the back, it can be difficult for most people, but it is really a test of like, is there hesitation, or is the body part able to like just do the motion without, having that, I guess you could say fear, or kind of like concern that it may not go all the way, and then not on top of that, but that that there's going to be pain. We did talk a little bit about chronic pain, and that's kind of why, once you're in chronic pain, you do have to be a lot more proactive in your recovery, because essentially when there's a chronic pain situation, the person has already like changed a lot about their life and their lifestyle and how they do things, and without starting with with where we're at with things, like, yes, this is where we're at, but things are gonna get better. It's kind of hard. It can be kind of disheartening when you're working with someone and you're like really encouraging them to be sure to do your icing, be sure to do your stretching, be sure to do your strengthening, and then they kind of do it but they don't, but then they're like continually coming in with the same with the same thing. And so that's what I like to help the person kind of get rid of that old record that just keeps playing and playing about things not getting better, and change it around, because they've been going to all these different doctors and therapists, and everyone's kind of, it's weird. It can be weird, and I totally relate to people that have to go through these things, especially if it's workers' comp, because there's no one that helps you really, even though there's supposed to be the department for a lot of companies. There's really no one that will help you get through it. You just kind of have to go through, and like, it's almost like, it's funny because when I think about it now, it is kind of like, do you know yourself? Do you know that you can heal yourself if you really wanted to, without the intervention of like surgery and medicine. I don't say medicine, but like pharmaceuticals. We'll say that, and things like that, because, like I mentioned before, a lot of the that pain cycle is psychomatic. It kind of, the brain gets stuck in this mode of thinking, and also in this mode of like sending or receiving like pain messages from that body part. So essentially, when you are strengthening, you're beginning to communicate. Again, a lot of this is going to be body communication. How are you communicating with your body? So strengthening, you actually want to do the move slow. You don't want to be like, oh, okay, I'm doing all these reps, because that's actually not doing too much, except for like increasing your heart rate, essentially. But when it comes to actually like training the muscle to become strong again and to become confident and not be weak, especially in the case of a pinched nerve, a lot of times a person feels numbness, tingling, and weakness. And say we start to really get trigger points out, the weakness is still going to kind of be there. And so a really good idea, that's kind of when like the physical activity needs to start to come into play. Now, I have 8-pound weights, not super heavy, but when you are doing, concentrated, and you haven't been doing these things, it can take a little bit to get used to. But I like it because it is light, and it's light but heavy enough to like really focus in. We don't really need much to build muscle. And so essentially, I'm doing even a bicep curl. So, coming up, it would be a slow motion, and then it would be a hold. And then on the way down, slow and controlled. So it would be slow and controlled. And you actually should start feeling the different muscles fire that do that motion. So slow and controlled back up. And then holding, and then slow and controlled back down. And now, see, along with this, so I'm, a lot of people, when they're doing bicep curls, they're really only thinking about the arm. They're not necessarily thinking about their abs, their obliques, and the lats. And those are all kind of like helper muscles, if you want to say. You may, depending on the state of the quality of your muscles, doing a lot of things, you're gonna feel it in that low back because of the lats, the latissimus dorsi. So latissimus dorsi is the one, it connects on a big band of fascia. I'm gonna actually take a picture and insert it. So it connects on that band of fascia, and it basically like wraps our sides all the way up and into the arm. It actually does connect onto the upper arm. And I feel that when an arm or shoulder injury has happened, that muscle is somehow forgotten. And I don't see how, when it's like, it's not a humongous muscle, but it's a pretty big muscle. It is flat, it is rather flat, but that's a really, really important one. And then even in the cases of like lower back pain, looking at the arms, looking at this top shoulder, looking at the rotator cuff, and are any of those muscles in an energy crisis, which means that it's full of trigger points, and that have developed over time, of dealing with things and stuff like that. There's a squirrel sitting there watching me. But like I was saying, so when you are, for example, if you're doing things because you have low back pain and you're like, how do I strengthen the muscles? Like, what muscles should I be strengthening, right? If I do have low back pain, like low back pain, I would say low back pain is like the main thing that people come to see me for. But it all, like, it starts low back, but it's always like something that happened to the arm. They either had a surgery, or I'm coming across a lot of people like that too, that have had, these multiple surgeries. And I have just had this innate feeling that, of course your body is still like, it's still recovering from that surgery. Like, people think, because it's closed and healed on the outside, that on the inside it's not, or that it is also. And sometimes it's not. Sometimes, a scar tissue that was developed, as the wound closed, that stuff is still there, and people don't realize that can cause like a knot. And so over time, and if you don't have proper body mechanics of doing your daily movements or daily activities, that's when things like that start to happen. Anything else? I don't want to make this video super long. I just wanted to focus today on strengthening. And so I'm not really going to take you through a routine of strengthening, because I don't know like what you're dealing with specifically. But for myself, I am going to do one for arms, and it's basically just going through the ranges of motion. Now, you don't necessarily, I forgot to mention this, you don't necessarily like need a weight. I would say first actually start with no weights. Like, start with just performing the movement of the body, of that body part, or the one that's mostly hurting you and that's mostly ailing you. And as things shift, incorporate that in, and making it a whole body thing is really, really good, because you're communicating with your body, and you're also helping to create that communication between the brain and your nervous system, and the pain receptors that are coming from the muscles. Okay, so like, for example, I guess for those of you that have something going on with your arms or shoulders, I'm gonna do just the motions. I'm not gonna use the weights right now. I just brought them along just to kind of have a demo. Also, before we get into the movements, I also wanted to talk about a yoga strap. Yoga straps are super, super helpful. You can also use a large towel to do the same thing, but for those that would like to lie on their back to stretch their legs, you can stretch your legs and lower body in different positions. So the yoga strap really does help to make it a little bit easier if lying on your back is more preferred. But anyway, so on to the movements. So you can kind of see this one a little bit better. Let me move it down a little bit. Okay, so basically I will have my hands down on this side and just bringing it all the way up. And now as I'm doing this, I am also paying attention to my spine and feeling, am I straight or is it, and I feel pretty straight. Down. And one more, up. Then down. And even, if you don't have arm stuff going on, you can also join in. It's helpful in general because a lot of us either are working at computers or have worked at a computer. A lot of us drive, so we have a lot of like forward okay, and then I like to bring it up and make a T. Then we're gonna come into the front, back out, and really feeling a stretch on my right. Front, out, out, and down. Okay, and then we'll doing this one, so you want your hands facing in, and they're gonna naturally kind of like turn outward. So just let your arm kind of, unless it may not, but generally when you bring your arms up, your hand kind of naturally kind of like opens up. Okay, and so we're gonna go forward and up. Big breath in. And then down. And remember, guys, all of these movements are really slow. So slow and controlled. Slow and controlled because we're working on the communication with our body to feel my muscles firing that do these moves. Okay, and then a lot of times I'll have the weights in my hands, and then I'll do like out, feeling a really good stretch like down in here, and then in, out, and sometimes it can be a little bit hard to like go slow when you're not using weights, because the weight, it gives that kind of resistance. But at the same time, I did want to mention I am like making sure to make sure that my core is stable. I am contracting it at the moment. As I'm doing that, also I also feel my obliques, so my internal and external obliques firing as well. And so that was just a little bit of an example, but like depending on your body part that you've either injured, like for knees it would be basically flexion extension of the knee. So, really paying attention to like your quads and your hamstrings, because those are supposed to kind of like teeter-totter. Let's see. Yeah, that's it. I'm going to head out. It's been quite the day. I got some stuff done. today, I don't know, it just seemed a little like time went by super fast. And yeah, I guess I just needed the rest because I straight took a fat nap. I don't know, guys, naps, I love my naps. And it's funny, before I go, I did want to talk about no, I'll talk about it later. Okay, guys, I'll check you guys out next time. This has been Alicia. Peace.